We used to say that we're not vocal jazz fans, but we've changed our tune. We've changed our wording. It's not that we're not fans. It's just that we're vocal jazz snobs. So how are we going to rate this week's artist? Stay tuned for the episode and find out.
This week's episode, Betty Carter, The Audience with Betty Carter. Take a look at the label name. It's produced by Bet Carr. That was on LP. And then later, Verve had it out on CD. So today, in my upper left-hand corner, we have Dad back. Say hello.
Good evening, y'all. Glad to be here. Thank you.
Yeah, welcome back as a co-host. This is what, your fifth time?
It would be my fifth time.
Nice.
Yes, at least.
At least.
And of
cups
course-
in the mail. Cups in the mail.
Comes in the mail.
Yeah.
Check will follow.
Better.
The this not only is it the fifth episode, it is also the fifth episode, and we had a special interview with you before. So this is number 6 that you've made an appearance with us.
We're just giving you a hard time, Dad. You know the cup's in the mail. You're going to get your cup.
Of course. I understand.
Michigan
I'm
Blue,
looking
right?
forward.
Michigan Blue.
You better not. No. No.
So Matt, 2 minutes of your week. What's been
minutes.
new with the week?
Okay, well, you know what? It's been a really great week. As of right now, I'm officially homeless. We signed the paperwork to sell our house today, and we will be signing the paperwork for the purchase of our new house not until the 27th of October. So, but my weekend music is very different from that because last Wednesday, I got to go see the Three Rivers Big Band again, live and in person, and I was there for all 3 hours, and Kendra joined me for the last couple of hours, and man, we had a great time listening to live big band music. If you ask me, big band is kind of some of my all-time favorite jazz. So anytime I get to go hear jazz, of course, I'm in a good mood, but big band jazz shoots me right through the roof. Of course, this week's artist in my ear didn't hurt. It's fun music to listen to. It's kind of easy music to listen to. And then on our personal journey, that's going to be another story for a much, much later time. So, but yeah, that was my weekend music. I had a great week. I kind of veered off and went a couple of different directions, listened to some Wynton Marsalis, listened to some Charles Lloyd today. So I was just kind of all over the place, but yeah, it's a good week. Dad, how about you? What was your weekend music like?
Well, really pretty simple. I began listening last week to our artist for the evening, and throughout the day, I had her in my ears listening to her music, her vocals, and that's really about it for me in music.
Yeah, good. Drew,
That's
what about you?
Status quo for the week is always a good week. This week has been pretty much the same. We've had some really exciting times just as far as the school season and the activities. Being a class dad has brought me an opportunity or 3 to just be present in front of the students at the school. First class dad. And I told y'all before we started to hit record that I'm serving as the storage unit for a vibraphone, which is pretty stinking cool. New School of Music, needed to get it moved from one location to the next, so it's going to be here for the week. I was kind of disappointed when I realized that the drummers or the percussionists usually bring their own mallets. So do you go buy a set of mallets knowing that on Saturday it's going to disappear again? But I did not have a chance to bring it in. I was actually going to put it in where the piano is right now behind me.
Man.
But
Okay, let me ask you, how much is a set of mallets?
oh, dirt cheap. It's
Okay.
I'll
10,
go
10
buy.
bucks, 15
I'll go
bucks?
buy a set tomorrow.
Okay. Yeah, I would say yes. It may give you a greater appreciation for how good Gary Burton really is, because we were just talking about Gary Burton right before you press play, and I'm just laughing a little bit. But man, you listen to a vibraphonist, and then you stand in front of that vibraphone and think, what do I do? How do I do it? So yeah, it gives you greater appreciation.
Like
Didn't Delaney play something?
Yes, she did. Yeah, for ISMA that one year. Yeah, she played the Well, I think she did it for 2 years. But yeah, that one vibraphone solo that she played, she double mallet, 4 mallets in her hand, and oh man, that she knocked it out of the park.
Yeah, she rocked it. It was really
Yeah.
good.
Yeah,
I still have a video of that.
I think I do too. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
So yeah, Drew. Yeah, was that your weekend music?
That's it.
Awesome.
Let's hit the slideshow.
So the slideshow, again, whatever you do, do it to jazz. That's kind of been my mantra for the time that we've been rolling here on the episodes. And you know what? I did it this week as well. But the artist that we're talking about, once again, Betty Carter, and the album is The Audience with Betty Carter. Moving on to the artwork slide. Again, it's interesting to me to talk about the artwork. I enjoy this cover a little bit. It's got a great picture of Betty on it. Drew, what do you think of the artwork?
Love it.
Yeah,
That's her.
that's for sure her. Yeah.
That is her.
Dad, what did you think of the artwork cover? Do you get a chance to see the artwork when you listen to the music, or is that something that you don't pay
Yes.
attention to?
No, I looked and saw the cover, and it's pretty impressive, especially her smile.
Yeah.
It's like a smile of joy and happiness and thrill. So
Yeah, it's real. That's what you said, right? It's real.
I said it's like a thrill for her.
A thrill. Okay, a thrill.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a good
Yeah.
word. I like that. It's a thrill. All right. Yeah. So moving on, I found 2 really good pictures this week to highlight on the slideshow. The one on the top left, the Smithsonian picture. I just thought it was just super cool. The way that it's black and white. She's got the movement. Her head is moving. The looks like the microphone is moving a little bit. But again, it reminds me, Drew, of something that you could do, that you would do, some artistic artwork for Betty. Then on the bottom right, Vito Art he's a Michigan artist, and again, I found this one on the Googs. So wanted to highlight the Michigan artist because Betty Carter, she was born in Flint, Michigan. But I just love the picture of her in the colorful dress, the hairdo and the glasses, the lipstick. Man, it's just a slick, cool looking picture. Dad, I'm sorry you don't get to see it right now. I probably should have sent the slideshow over to you just so you could see it and knew what we were talking about. Drew, what did you think of the art picture?
I love that. I really do. First, that it's highlighting the Flint, Michigan, somebody from hometown. But the bright and vibrant colors of her, and it's kind of muted in the background, the musicians there, or the piano players. So,
Yeah.
Love that.
Yeah. Let's talk about jazz lingo for the day. Today, the word I chose was medium, and medium as in tempo. So medium is one of the standard jazz tempos. It's neither up tempo nor ballad style tempo. So Betty sings mostly in medium tempo. She doesn't sing anything really too fast and upbeat. She doesn't sing anything. Well, she kind of does sing some ballads, but it's all kind of medium tempo, in my opinion. So that's the jazz lingo for the day. So when the band says, "Hey, how fast are we going?" Oh, go medium.
Not fast, not slow.
Right. Yeah, we're going medium.
Medium rare. No, we want medium.
No, yeah, medium. Oh no, medium rare for me. All right, moving on. Hey Cats, where can you get it at? This week's album can be found on YouTube, iTunes, YouTube Music, LP, and then I made the mistake of not reading the top line of the article because it was released on a CD on the Verve label. So I made a mistake. So yeah, you can find it on CD as well. Quote on the bottom of that slide from Betty Carter: "You can do anything you want to do if you know what to do." I love it because it's plain and simple. Anything you want to do, you can do it if you know what.
Love
We didn't know what we were doing when we started this channel, and most of the time we still don't, but we're getting a lot better. So, right, Dad?
Unconnoisseurs.
That's right. We're unconnoisseurs. All right, let's move over to the information slide, and we'll just converse a little bit here about Betty Carter. Betty was born in 1929. She passed away in 1998. Sorry, that makes her 69 years old. Unfortunately, I wasn't into jazz at the time, so I just didn't pay attention, and I'm sure it made national news, her passing, because she is kind of a national icon. But I didn't pay attention. What do you got?
And to put a note on that, we lost her in just a few days from now, September 26th of 1998. So
Ooh.
we'll celebrate the life of just a few days after this episode comes out for public consumption. So yeah, here's to Betty Carter.
Yeah, for sure. For what I found for the influences, all right, she studied piano at the Detroit Conservatory of Music. She started singing at the age of 16, and some of her influences were Dizzy Gillespie, Ray Charles, and Lionel Hampton. Now, there's some pretty interesting stories about her and Lionel Hampton. Lionel Hampton was a band leader, and yeah, they didn't get along too well. I think one of the stories I read said that Lionel fired her 6 times, and on the seventh time he fired her, she quit. she said, "I'm never coming back." But yeah, anyways, those are some of her influences. She's got 23 studio albums and 4 compilation CDs, so she's got an extensive music collection. You know, she did a lot of work. She worked for several different labels, and then she started her own label. We'll get into that discussion here in just a minute. Also, the genre that I have listed was jazz and post. Jazz and post bop. So, on the album that we're going to talk about, The Audience with Betty Carter, I mean, it's pretty straight jazz, in my opinion. I don't hear too much post bop in her vocal, but I'm an unconnoisseur, so I'm sure you're going to tell me, no, you're wrong. Right?
Nope. I'm not going to say that. That's what I found too.
Okay. All right. Good. I feel like I'm.
Did you see anything about avant-garde?
No, not avant-garde. Nope. Or free. She's not a free jazz soloist. All right. Some of the things that she's known for, her improv technique is called scat. And that's not just her technique, but the way that she uses the vocal is called scat singing. It's been around for a very, very long time. And I think they called it scat from the beginning, or probably had some other terms for it, but yeah, scat's what we landed on. Again, she was born in Flint, Michigan. She started her own record label in 1969 called Bet Carr, or Betty, short for Betty Carter, Bet Carr. In 1976, she was one of the first musical artists on Saturday Night Live. So season 1, Saturday Night Live, she was one of the very first musical artists to perform on Saturday Night Live. Now, there have been, everyone has performed on Saturday Night Live, ranging from the Rolling Stones to Taylor Swift to, you name it. The Foo Fighters you're a who's who if you perform on Saturday Night Live, but she's a who's who because she did it in the first season. So I thought that was really cool to highlight and known for. In 1980, they made a documentary of Betty, and the documentary's name was But Then She's Betty Carter. 1988, she won a Grammy for Look What I Got, the song Look What I Got. She won a Grammy for that. So it's just cool to know that she's a Grammy award-winning artist, and I just love I love that. So when we can talk about good artists who put out good music and then are awarded for it with a Grammy. The 6 degrees that I found was pretty easy this week because Betty and Miles played in the same band directly. It was a band with Lionel Hampton, Miles Davis, Charlie Parker, and Betty. So her and Charlie, I was going to go around the block and just say Betty Carter with Charlie Parker with Miles, but I didn't even have to because they were in the same band together. So yep. Did you find a different one?
No, I found the exact same one. That was the first thing I came across in reading. It was Miles Davis that actually said to Ray Charles, you need to pick her up for your band. So she got to move on with Ray Charles in his music, thanks to the nod from Miles Davis. So that was it. When I saw that, I was kind of done. Now, being that she played with Lionel Hampton, I immediately went to Lionel Hampton's band to see, of course, Miles is there. Now, that was in the mid to late 40s. I was hoping that there was a path that crossed with Clifford Brown and Lionel Hampton, but Clifford didn't play there until the middle 50s. So they were a few years apart with Lionel Hampton's band.
Okay. Cool. Yeah, it's great nugget.
And that nugget's going to come back up in a little bit when I talk about Betty Carter and Miles as well, but even more with Lionel Hampton.
Yeah, for sure. All right, let's finish out the slideshow with the last slide. Today in jazz history. Today, September the 25th, saxophonist Sam Rivers was born in 1923, and also saxophonist Lee Konitz records duets with the drummer Elvin Jones in 1967. So Lee Konitz, we have not talked about Lee yet. He may be on the list. He may not. I hope he is. But yeah, we haven't covered Lee yet. One final quote from Betty Carter, and she is talking about herself here. She said, "Listen, nobody was coming this way, and I wanted the records out there. So I found out that I could do it myself." In that quote. So that's what I did. It's the best thing that ever happened to me. You know, we're talking about 69. That's a quote from Betty Carter. She says, "Screw it. No one's covering me. I'm going to do it myself." She started her own label, Bet Carr, in 1969.
Killer.
Yeah. So thanks. That's the slideshow. Thanks for letting me do that.
I've got a slide that I want to drop in because in 1979, there's some things to highlight. Been bringing in that recent in the year of. So I'm gonna put that up right now. 1979, we lost band leader Stan Kenton, and we lost Charles Mingus.
Oh,
His wife Sue Mingus formed the Mingus dynasty in honor of her late husband, and they're still performing today. Also in jazz, pianist Keith Jarrett and Jan Garbarek recorded live. Dizzy Gillespie publishes his book To Be or Not to Bop. And then pianist Bill Evans makes his final recordings. Outside of the jazz world, 1979, Margaret Thatcher becomes Britain's first female prime minister. Francis Ford Coppola's movie Apocalypse Now is out. Major nuclear disaster on 3 Mile Island. Now, I'm going to skip this and go to the next one. The first Sony Walkman is introduced. And the last one, because this sums up my week in music as well, Entertainment Sports Program Network is launched in the United States.
ESPN.
ESPN.
Yeah.
So being that I'm watching college football all the time, ESPN came out in 1979.
Wow. Oh man, that's cool. And now people name their kids after the network. Yeah. Espen, right?
Espen. Aaron and Espen.
And Balake.
And Balake. USA. 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 So Betty Carter.
Yeah, let's get into it. Dad, what did you think of the overall album? What was your first impression when you listened to it? How did it just give us your overall opinion about Betty Carter. What'd you think?
Well, I was very impressed by Betty's vocalization throughout much, if not much, of the album. I had a couple of the first two pieces I thought were exceptional, and I related to them in terms of I could listen to that. There was a couple others that created some disharmony, dissonance in my head, but overall, thought it was a good album. Now, if you're going to ask me now or later, would I go back and listen to the music? I probably wouldn't.
Okay.
Because I think there's other pieces that I enjoy much more than I would this.
Because you're kind of a vocal jazz snob as well.
I would say so, yes.
Yeah. And I know who you're going to go back and listen to, and that would not be a bad choice to go back and listen to. However,
right.
Betty's not a bad choice either. So
some of the previous female vocalists, I would rate Betty better than them.
Okay.
Yeah,
sure.
I looked the list over without calling names.
Well, I'll call them out. So Cecile McLaurin, she was number 97 in the magazine. I don't know if you listen to any Cecile, but
I did a little bit of it.
Okay.
A little bit of it.
and I find Cecile and Betty's tone to be kind of similar. Cecile has that real kind of open, throaty tone that Betty Carter has. So Cecile, okay, and then also we did Cassandra Wilson, and I don't know if you listen to any Cassandra, but I've gone back even since we started it initially, the channel, and then Drew and I's personal journey, because we're a year ahead. I've gone back several times to Cassandra. But did you listen to any Cassandra this week?
Not this week, no.
No. Okay. All right. Fair enough. Drew, what about you?
I'm taking notes. Sorry.
You're taking notes. Well, all right. Well, I'll keep talking to Dad then.
No,
This is what it means to be unconnoisseurs.
That's right.
I was thinking in terms of, right above Matt's head, we need to put Cassandra's album. And then I drew the blank because I was thinking about Abby Lincoln when it came to the music versus going back, or Sassy.
Okay.
Sassy swings to Tivoli.
Sassy swings to Tivoli. Yeah, you're right.
But when it came to Cecile, I was thinking, I agree with you. Very similar tones, very similar power and vocal control through Betty.
Yeah.
I had a hard time with the first song being 25 minutes long on the album.
Same.
And I know that it covers her entire vocal range. So you get to hear her power, you get to hear her control, you get to hear some slurring, you get to hear a whole lot of scat. But anytime it's a 25-minute song, I'm good with about 5 to 7 minutes. And then I'm not sure if the song changed. I'm not sure if, did I miss something? Is it a new tune? And so I struggle with that. But the album was an hour and 30 minutes long total. So if you took out.
And it's actually, is it a double CD?
It is a double CD.
Yeah, it's a double. So.
Yep. But I ended up, of course, this is a year later. So going back to listen to it today, I really loved it. And I was really proud to go back and look at the names on her website. And I'll talk about that in a moment. I want to listen to some clips here so that people understand what kind of vocal control she has before I get into any real tech on this. So let's drop in an audio clip so that we can talk about that. I had a couple of songs picked out, but Matt, you wanted to go with a particular track, and then we'll set up for the next one's coming.
So the one that I chose is called "Open the Door," and it's actually song number 9 on CD 2. It's the last song on the whole album, and for me, this one got me. I was setting the studio up today, and I had this in my ears again for the 50th time this week, and sometimes you float away for a minute and not really pay attention, even though it's in. This one, I don't know, man. This one just draws me in. So I'm going to start "Open the Door" at about 35 seconds. I'm going to let. It was written by Betty Carter. Yeah. So here we go. Open the door.
Open the door.
I just love it. I love the bass line, the way that he is grooving so hard on that bass line, and then she just comes in like a calming wave. He's back there, it's just laying it down, and her control, the way that she comes in and just kind of waves right over you. It's not going to bring me to tears this week, but man, it's just cool. It's just cool. Yeah. What'd you think? What'd you think, Dad? Oh, go ahead. I'm sorry.
I was going to say what it does is touches on that calypso beat, that calypso rhythm. So I can almost feel the waves coming in. Going back to Art Tatum and Ben Webster, like she's riding the wave that the bass is playing. But to me, what it was really about is having an opportunity to hear the mastery at the slow pace. She's putting herself out there. It's kind of a vulnerable. That's where musicians really critique. Can she hold a long, slow note? And she sure can. Dad?
Yeah.
Yeah, I like that piece as well. And I like the way you describe it, like it's a wave coming in and the music in the background. And then she, with her vocals, they blend so well together is what I see or what I feel,
Yeah.
what I think. So, and she does that in almost every one of the pieces on the album. That's really her, not her style, but her ability. That's her ability to do that, and it's remarkable the way she's able to do that with the trio and the others. So, yeah.
Yeah. Cool. Drew, what else you want to hear?
Raindrops and roses and whiskers on kittens, bright copper kettles and warm woolen mittens, brown paper packages tied up with strings. These are a few of my favorite things.
Oh, come on. Everyone knows the tune. You know the song. I don't know. Personally, I liked it.
Well, the music background, the piano in the background, I really appreciated that. This guy, I would assume he is masterful.
Yeah.
The way he handles that all throughout that entire piece, and how he's able to blend with her and just maintain that rhythm. You call it rhythm or tempo?
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
But like you said before, she's not Julie Andrews. She's not singing it Sound of Music style. She put her own
Right.
style on it.
Yes, and that you
Yeah.
have to appreciate. That's who she is, and that's the way she brings out the music, her
Yeah.
own style, her own voice.
Well,
Yeah.
and okay, I'm using that word. I highlighted this in the magazine article. Her spirit is free and floating. Those words stuck out to me in the magazine article. A free and floating spirit, and you can kind of see how she's free to. She takes a longer break instead of raindrops on roses and whiskers on kittens. Raindrops on roses and whiskers on kittens. You know, she takes that freedom to make it her own. And I don't know. I found it interesting, way more interesting this time than a year ago for me.
I did too.
May I say, based on what I read about her early life, it sounds like in most families have some dysfunction, okay? And I think she made, what would you say, lemonade out of the lemons, and she brought out from dysfunction, she brought out tremendous function and ability. She didn't let it destroy her. She didn't let it create a problem for her. She made the best of it.
Mhm.
And that, as I read, I so much appreciated that about the way she overcame. She overcame all these obstacles in her life, and so I give her a lot of credit for that. That's just fantastic. She didn't let anything bother her, it seems, and she moved on and made a name for herself. So, yeah,
Well,
I give her a lot of.
And on the wiki page, it says the isolation, it instilled in her a self-reliance and determination to succeed. So she was kind of, I mean, like you said, a dysfunctional family for sure, because she was isolated from her family. They, even though in my mind, they probably didn't shun her, but they're like, you got to go, you got to get out and make your own life. And so, yeah, she felt isolated, but man, that gave her the confidence to go, well, and then working with Dizzy Gillespie, because Dizzy was the one that kind of, I don't want to say pushed her along, but gave her enough confidence building to say, hey, you got the right stuff. You just got to learn how to use it and deal with it.
This thought just came to me. So her parents didn't thrust her into the Army or drive her to Texas, but there they are, you know.
Well, true. Yeah. Yeah. And again, I'm just reading on the wiki page because, yeah, it doesn't really say that they didn't mistreat her, but they didn't really support her either. Which that's probably the difference, because you know, your support for both of us the whole time is different, but it still instills, self-reliance in us.
Yeah, like as if to say, do you really want to be a musician? Is there a future? Can you make it as a starving artist? Really?
Mm-hmm.
And so she proved that she could. So she was self-reliant, and that's a good quality to have, isn't it?
Well,
sure.
it touches on something called belonging, and I think that's the important part. While the lack of support from the family may not have been there, and the self-reliance was, after studying at the Detroit Conservatory of Music, piano wasn't her strong suit of the time. And she found an open door when she auditioned for a live talent show, and she won. Well, maybe the piano's not it, but my voice sure is. And shortly after that, she felt accepted into the music world. So I'm going to do something about it. And it doesn't hurt then that you study with Dizzy Gillespie and learn his phrasings and learn his style. And we're talking about the 40s. And then into Lionel Hampton's band, where Lionel's wife Gladys gave her the title Betty Bebop, which I found kind of fitting, because the 40s, it would have been Betty Boop, but this is Betty Bebop. And then Gladys is accepted. Of course, then she gets kicked out and fired 7 times from Lionel's band, but then ends up with so much other musicianship under her belt. So yeah, how did that shape what we hear in 70s when she starts, late 60s, when she starts her own record label?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So
yeah, that's a big deal.
Yeah, that's a big deal for sure. Now, I will tell you this: I'm not a fan of scat, even when it's not that she doesn't do it well, but even in the best of circumstances, if you scat for a couple of bars, it's not going to bother me. But you know, you go 32 bars scat solo, and I'm kind of checking out mentally, thinking, all right, let's get back to the music and let's get back to, you know, the real deal here. So, not that, again, I'm just not a huge scat fan.
I found some interesting stuff about scat, actually, and I printed it up.
Do tell.
In fact, I'm sorry. Yeah. Basically, scat originating is from vocal jazz, improvisation, wordless vocables, nonsense syllables. It makes no sense, but she was able to put that out there, that scat, and make, not like it made a lot of sense, but it fit in with what she was singing, what she was doing. And another piece, Al Jolson from 1911 or so, he did a recording called The Haunting Melody, and I listened to that today. It made no sense to me, but it's like he's been credited as originating scat music, but at the same time, one of our previous professionals was Jelly Roll Morton. I'm sure you've seen that.
Yep.
That he claims to be the creator of scat.
Of scat. Okay.
Yeah. And
Well,
he,
okay.
he was in an interview with, he had an interview with somebody by the name of Lomax. Maybe you know that name, an artist. But the guy said, so what does scat mean? And Jelly Roll said, scat doesn't mean anything, but just something to give a song a flavor. Isn't that interesting?
Yeah, that
To
is.
give the song a flavor. So,
Huh.
yeah.
Okay. All right.
Yeah, that's
Look,
kind of what I was from.
Louis Armstrong scats in his songs too. But again, it's only for a few bars, not for a whole 32 bars solo. And I can handle it, not just because it's Louis, but because of the sheer amount. And it's not, well, yeah, I'm not a huge scat fan. Drew, what do you think?
Well, as you kicked off the show, we're not huge vocal fans to begin with. We're kind of snobs. And with scat, it is, I had some notes about it. Your voice is the first instrument you ever learned to use. Matt, because of Mom and Dad, our first instrument was being used at church choir, at Gospel Temple, or even at ARI. So we got to use our voice for the first time in that manner. She then turned it into an instrument that almost mimicked some of Dizzy Gillespie's earlier bop stuff. So for her, the scat was about control of the instrument as it was a trumpet or a sax or a clarinet. So I have to appreciate a little bit of it, but I'm with you. After a couple of bars of it, I'm pretty done.
I will say. Go ahead. Go.
Here's a couple other interesting things about scat. It's improvisational singing of nonsense syllables, and it comes in many different cultures, actually. In Ireland, it's called lifting. In German, it's yodeling. It's like
Maybe that's why I don't care for it.
Yeah. Or this, they even said it's like speaking in tongues in some various church cultures.
Okay.
Right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So
well,
it's interesting.
And Matt, what I had to run into with this is with the scat version of it, I have to be mindful to not say that I don't like it, because then I would have to lump that on to Clark Terry and his mumbles.
True.
And so that's a form of scat as he mumbles.
True.
So it was interesting to say the least. But
okay, let me ask you a question. Let me ask you both a question. Besides Gregory Porter, who is very distinguishable musically wise and vocal wise, could you distinguish the difference between Betty Carter and Sarah Vaughan? If it came on and you didn't know who was singing, would you immediately say this is Betty Carter, as opposed to Sarah Vaughan or Abby Lincoln?
I think I would. I think so, but honestly, I'd have to go back and listen to those two artists.
Yeah.
But I really, at this point, I think I could.
Okay.
Yeah.
I think.
Drew, what about you? Yeah.
I could, because we've also blended in another powerhouse in our own journey as we've come along. There was a time when I would confuse Ella and Sarah Vaughan. There was a time when it's Cassandra just because of the way in which she handles herself. You knew the difference between Nina Simone and Abby Lincoln. I think it was the scat that drew Betty Carter out. I really do, and I think that's probably where I would begin to identify. Her voice to me is like Clifford Brown blowing the trumpet versus Clark Terry. There's so much power behind and technique behind her voice that it stands out to me as Betty Carter.
I think if any of those other female vocalists were to sing my favorite things, I would know who was singing it.
Okay.
Well, and Matt, you said in the article, her spirit is free and floating. The sentence before that said she also refused to jam the entire alphabet into each measure.
True.
And so she did take her time and paused at unique places, which provides some texture to the music, to what she was doing. So I got to give credit on that.
True, for sure. The craftsmanship is there. The awareness for me, I still struggle sometimes between, her and Abby and not necessarily Nina. You can pick out Nina. The creativity is there for me. Her spirit definitely comes through in the music, and my emotion when I listen to it, it's good. Makes me feel okay.
Yeah.
Doesn't hurt my feelings to listen to it.
No.
So she kind of fits all of our categories.
She really does. Is it approachable? I think that we're hearing a live performance, so you know what the audience is thinking. It's an audience with Betty Carter. So you kind of feel like you could be sitting there listening to this.
True. Yeah, and when you wear your nice headphones and play it, you almost do feel like you're sitting there.
That's it.
Yeah.
I want to touch on this before. I know we were getting to the score with that information coming out. I think that it was important because of my current place. I was laughing with the director of the New School of Music Austin last night as I'm volunteering to take the vibraphone home. I'm all excited. I'm all geeked out. And he goes, just imagine you're sitting here playing your horn with this group, volunteering to move instruments around and move this and do that. And how can you get involved? 2 years ago, you didn't even care for jazz. And I laughed because he's got a point there. Betty Carter started a program called Jazz Ahead. And her goal, I want to touch on this going back to her embracing her uniquenesses. She was given an opportunity. Her bands that she toured with typically had new names in them. She wanted the new, fresh, raw talent of these up-and-coming musicians. And Carter's band served a dual purpose, to create her own great music and to help young musicians develop their craft. That program is still going on through Jazz Ahead, and it's important to think about that. I want to touch on this because this is somebody crucial to me. She went on to teach and instruct these new musicians who led then successfully their own groups. And this is coming from her website. I didn't see this name on Wiki, but I saw it on her website. These musicians went on to lead their groups, such as Jerry Allen, Stephen Scott, Don Braden, and Christian McBride. Yeah, Matt, your mouth drops because every year I get to hang out with Don Braden for a week.
Yeah.
And I remember him talking about his time with Betty. And I think about the Wynton Marsalis. I think about what Miles was able to do. I go back to Lionel Hampton, who took these young cats under his wings and gave them an opportunity to perform. She's continued that tradition with a passion up until even her last days. So to me, that's kind of a crucial element in this. Now, my score didn't reflect that at the time because I didn't know what I didn't know.
Right. So let me go over this real quick. I've got 2 points. She didn't make the 99 list. She was number 78 on the 2006 list. And of course, she's number 65 on the 2022 list. So going from not making the list at all in 06 or 99, sorry, not making the list at all. I like where she's at in the magazine. All Music magazine gave it 4 out of 5 stars. Penguin Guide to Jazz gave it 4 out of 4 stars. The Rolling Stone Jazz Record Guide gave it 5 out of 5 stars. And we're talking about this album. Sorry, we're talking about the audience with Betty Carter. So yeah, All Music gave it 4 out of 5. Penguin Guide to Jazz gave it 4 out of 4. Rolling Stone gave it 5 out of 5. Now, I'm ready to drop my score. I won't say that we bixed it, but I'll say that we scored her fair for the time that you and I did it a year ago. And it actually wasn't even a year. It was, almost a year. It was the week of Thanksgiving. And that has a lot to do with our scores as well. You know, you're preparing for having family over for Thanksgiving or avoiding family if you have to, which we don't. But and so having her in my ear, maybe not as much that time as I did this week. My score a year ago, and of course, you know, we don't change scores. So, but my score was a 5 out of 10. Dad, if you could score Betty Carter based on the episodes that you've been on and your enjoyment level, what out of 10 would you score Betty?
Based on the album not on her as a person, okay, but based on the album, the audience, I would give it a 6.
Okay, nice.
It was live, first of all, and like Drew said earlier, you could hear the applause in the background, which suggested everybody who was there. I mean, the level of applause seemed real and genuine. People really appreciated this album, so I'd give it a 6. Yeah.
And that week we went through it, I gave it a 6 as well. And I was pretty happy with that score, not knowing what I was going to find out later. And her power and her ability, her technical, all of that comes into play. So I might not have changed it a lot, but I would have given it definitely a better score, now appreciating more of the albums.
Okay, so let me ask you this. Again, we covered it almost a year ago in our personal journey, and we've had a lot of jazz music in our ears over the last year. Do you think it's because we're expanding our palette that you would change it? Because when we did it a year ago, we were only 35 weeks into listening to jazz, which 35 weeks is a long time, and we consumed a lot of jazz in those 35 weeks. But think of all the rest of the jazz that we've consumed since then. Do you think that changes your opinion? Because I think I gave it a fair score for when we did it as a complete true unconnoisseur.
I agree with your statement. We've consumed a lot more jazz. I've understood a lot more jazz. I've learned a lot more about the ability of the musicians. So yeah, my knowledge has grown, which would have changed my score greatly. It's always about developing a newer piece of the art. A paintbrush is a paintbrush is a paintbrush. But what happens if you use your eraser as a paintbrush instead of a brush? And so these subtleties I've learned about, and that's what would change my score today.
All right, let me ask you one more question. Dad, I know that you've already recommended Gregory Porter to friends and family and everyone that you talk to. Would you recommend Betty Carter to your friends and family, acquaintances?
I don't think
you wouldn't?
so.
Okay.
No.
Okay.
I'm trying to think of the words to use. I'm not sure.
I think
Approachable and appreciation, because they don't know the artist, and all they would do is listen to the music. If they studied the artist, they would have a greater appreciation for it, I believe. But just to listen to the music, I'm not sure. Yeah, I wouldn't. I really wouldn't.
Drew, what about you?
Especially a first-time jazz listener.
Right. If you never heard jazz before, turn on Betty Carter. You're going to know what jazz is. I get that. Yeah, I get that. What about you, Drew?
I would, because in the vocal world, we have a vocalist on Sunday nights. So I think in terms of understanding your voice, how to use it for music and the benefit of it, I would say that listen to it. Now, I might suggest the album Dropping Things from Betty Carter. It was a really great album, and I know if you're excited, you know why I listened to that album. I think it's only on 2 tracks, though.
Yeah, I know.
Freddie Hubbard, baby. Freddie Hubbard.
Yep, that's right. That's right. I did I'm Yours, You're Mine from 1996. Yep. That's a studio album, and I like her control on her voice a lot better on the 96 album. She's more focused on hitting the note and staying there, not sliding into it or falling off of it as much. So, yeah.
So next week's album, my mind went over to a guy who plays his saxophone and a recorder through his nose and multiple saxophones. Somebody learned a whole lot about music as a kid.
That's right.
Do you want to introduce next week's album?
You want me to do it or you want to do it? I'll do it. All right, here we go. Next week's album, and Drew's going to have the slideshow up or the slide up so that you can see the album cover. Next week, we are covering Roland Kirk, and the name of the album is We Free Kings. It was released on the Mercury label on LP and CD. It was recorded in 1961. Roland plays the tenor saxophone, the manzello, and the stritch and the flute. Hank Jones, Richard Wyans played the piano. Wendell Marshall and Art Davis play the bass, and Charlie Persip plays the drums. Now, It's going to be an interesting week. I remember the term that I used in my note taking. Well, I look at my notes every day, but the shtick that Roland's got is, like Drew said, he plays multiple saxes or multiple instruments at the same time. So it's really cool. On some of the pictures you'll see, he's holding a tenor sax, an alto sax, and a soprano sax all around his neck. And he's moving between playing two and playing one, and putting the flute up his nose and playing the flute too, or whatever he does. So it's going to be a real interesting week in music.
The cat was from Columbus, Ohio.
Columbus, Ohio. That's right.
Wonderful. Go Bucks.
OH.
IO.
Oh,
All right. Dad, thanks so much for joining us again this week. I hope that you put Roland in your ears and join us again next week for Roland Kirk, We Free Kings. Drew, any final thoughts?
I do not. No.
Dad, any final thoughts?
one thing that I appreciate about Betty Carter, she invested her life in younger Drew, you mentioned an up and coming artist, and she would go to colleges and university and play and then teach as well, which to me is remarkable. Coming from basically a lowly status and then attaining to this very high professional life is outstanding to me. So
you could say that she's a jazz messenger.
Yes. Oh yeah. Yeah. Oh yeah. Thanks
sure.
for the opportunity. Thanks for the opportunity of joining you all tonight.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, your nuggets of wisdom really helped. So
thank you.
Drew, why don't you roll out with where they can find us at?
You can find us on the website at theunconnoisseur.com. Drop an email to us, theunconnoisseur@gmail.com. We're on TikTok. We are on YouTube, as you know. And don't forget, podcast listeners, sorry you can't see our beautiful faces, but we are on all three of your favorite streaming channels. So check us out there. From the Unconnoisseurs, Matt, Drew, and Dude in the upper left-hand corner, we'd like to thank y'all for being here.
Peace out. Thanks for joining us.